This podcast is sponsored by Magic Rock Brewing. Currently, you can get free delivery on all orders over £40 and 10% of all online orders by using our code of TakesThatChance10.
Jepson's there, Billy in, the goal, Chris Billy, Huddersfield Town. The most famous goal of Chris Billy's life. Is this the moment for Lee Fowler? It is. Take your place in Division 2, Huddersfield Town. Ruby and Steve Simonson's boots now. He's missed. Steve Simonson clears the frame of the goal and collapses in a heap of tears. Huddersfield Town are promoted. Mustafa Schindler has a chance to write his name in Huddersfield Town legend. And he takes that chance.
Yeah, we're good.
How many does he do? Does he do 2 years old?
Yeah, we're good. All right. Right, guys. Hello and welcome to another live episode of Annie Takes That Chance. The transfer window came and went yesterday, but rather than a striker in for Huddersfield, it was a strikeout. Here's hoping that we can pitch something better tonight, lads. So joining me, host for this week, Brady Frost, we've got Dan, the poacher Porritt. How are you, Dan?
Yeah, not bad, mate. Yourself?
Yeah, can't complain, mate. And joining me and Dan is BBC Radio Leeds is Jonny, back of the net, Buchan. Evening, Jonny.
Evening, lads.
Evening. And finally, to make our lineup complete, we've got Phil Stops Them Going In, Senior. How are you, Phil?
Hey, good evening. How are we doing, guys?
Yeah, we're great, mate. So I know, obviously, it's a bit of an interesting one, this one. I know all the listeners and the viewers are very keen to go into depth about the transfer window, but we are actually going to talk about the game first. We're going to talk about Stoke. So it was a 1-1 draw, as we all know. Some stats for you chaps. Obviously, there was an error in this game for Huddersfield. Huddersfield have the most errors leading to goals this season, 6. And obviously, one was in this game. But Jonny, you were actually commentating on the match. So I'm going to go to you first. What did you make of it from your lucky view?
I thought it was very similar to the Bristol City game in terms of the domination, wasn't it? I think over those 2 games, you've had, 42 shots, I think, in total, and scored 2 goals. One of them, the deflected one at the weekend, which is just ridiculous when you think about it. I thought they probably deserved to win the game just about. I know Carlos felt that they definitely deserved to win the game. It was quite interesting speaking to him afterwards. He was more focused on the opening 45 minutes and how disappointing that was, rather than the second 45 where he had the man advantage. He didn't seem to want to really go into that too much, but he was furious at the full-time whistle, which kind of told you everything you need to know. He stormed off down the tunnel. I know he usually walks off down the tunnel, but he did storm off down it. Entertaining game, really entertaining game, but a very, very frustrating game to watch. From a commentator's perspective, never mind what you guys must have been feeling watching it as well.
Poz, what did you think? I know you didn't. You did watch some of the games this time. But
I did watch this one, mate. I did watch this one. I've prepared well for this one. Another frustrating afternoon, really, wasn't it? Especially second half, as Jonny mentions there, similar to Bristol, a lot of possession, a lot of shots. You know, I think afterwards on, I don't know, different websites obviously do different stats, but on iFollow it said clear-cut chances against Stoke were actually down at 0. So to say we had, a man advantage for 45 minutes, not to create an actual clear-cut chance. I think Buchan had one decent shot. Apart from that, I don't really remember getting overly excited, thinking, this is the moment that we're in, which it goes back to what we've been saying over the last couple of weeks. Is a lack of creativity in final third. I think it were very keep possession and look for that opening, which were it ever really going to come? There's no one there that could really play that killer pass. To be able to play that killer pass, you've got to have decent movement in front of it, which we don't seem to have. Interestingly enough, I watched the goal we conceded back today whilst we're doing my research, and it looks like Keogh is looking to pass it. He takes a step out, he takes another step out, and it's almost like there's nowhere to go here. So I'm going to play it square, and obviously made a bit of a balls of it. But even then, the defenders, he's 30 yard out. You've still got a chance to defend that. So although, Keogh makes a bad pass, you've still got to look at Naby Sarr there. He puts the tackle in while he's almost sort of falling over, which if you watch it back, the Stoke fella's cutting inside, and there's an actual, I couldn't see who it was, but there's a Town player, no more than sort of 2 or 3 yards inside of him, so I don't even need to make that tackle there. So just a silly decision from Keogh, a silly decision from Sarr, and put Stoke right back in it. But yeah, just focusing on second half and chances missed. It's becoming a bit of a worry that we're having all these sort of possession and chances, but really we're not actually testing keeper. And you don't mind losing or drawing if keepers made 5 or 6 top class saves. You've hit post. I know we did at Bristol a couple of times, but if keeper has a blinder, you come away and say, do you know what, fair play to the keeper there, he's kept him in it. But when he's made one decent save really in 90 minutes and you've played against 10 men for 45, it's just not good enough. And I think it's that lack of creativity in final third.
Yeah, I agree. I think we were dominant, weren't we? It was a very dominant game again. Bristol City were fantastic. Very very relaxed kind of watch as you would go, and I think, like you say, it's kind of like the killer instinct further forward in the final third. We were fine through the thirds, and we never looked trouble once in defence. And I just think the second half kind of killed it for us. I don't know if it was a decision from the manager how we play. For me, I would have gone more attacking. I would have maybe put the young lad on with Campbell as well. Play 2 up front. Down to 10 minutes, it's a totally different game. We've got the balls in wide areas, but we didn't put it in early. The best cross that came for me was Holmes when he came on. He put a beauty in behind, and no one gambled. You put 2 strikers up there, it's a different, like I say, it's a different game. I've said before on this podcast about outfielders, like goalkeepers hate outfielders, and I do think, and this is maybe me sticking up for the defence, but if you watch that the penalty back, the lad's running towards goal and he's cut the ball square. He's running across his 18-yard box. Sarr's put his foot out to block the ball coming past him, but the lad's actually squared it. So as he's running forward, he's squared it to the left, but he's carried on running forward. So he's actually not running towards the ball. So for me, he's clashed into Sarr. That might be me just kind of sticking up for the defensive unit, but I think I thought it would pull it straight away. But it's like I say, the game's full of opinions, as we'll probably find out later tonight when we discuss transfers and things. But it was positive. It was a positive performance. Just that killer instinct at the top. We'll probably go on to it when we talk about transfers and things. But there was nothing there to kind of finish those chances. I mean, we'll go back to it, and we keep going back to it. The year we went up into the Premier League, we took our chances. We didn't have many. We weren't free scoring, but we took the chances. Naki Wells only scored 10 goals that season. And there was others that were chipping in, and people aren't chipping in at the moment. So it's difficult, but again, Stoke above us, right or wrong. So it was a confident performance for me, even before they went down to 10 men. So interesting to see what you guys think later on when we talk about, like I say, the transfers.
Yeah, I think they're like a great. Oh, sorry, Brady, go on.
No. I think for me, what we've seen this season, we can't convert our chances, but I was kind of. I mean, we'll come on to the red card, but I think that was a bit of the game changer. Stoke were happy, had a point at, had 1 point at that point. We have to sit back on it, and I think it's kind of a theme this season when teams go and defend, we really struggle to break them down, and that's what kind of came across to me. I think. I saw some Stoke fans saying it wasn't a red card, but I think for me that was definitely a red card. I don't know about you, Johnny. Obviously you have a better view than me. 100%
red card. At the time, live saw it and thought, yeah, definite red card, and seen it back since and think definite red card as well. It was actually someone messaged us afterwards and said it was the best thing that Fraser Campbell did all game was actually slipping in that scenario because it allowed the ball to run away. It might have been Cozzy actually, and the ball ran away from him obviously, and then getting there first is Buchan, and in comes that late tackle, and yeah, there was no doubt that it was a red card for me. I think the most surprising thing of the entire afternoon, though, and it's what Phil mentioned there in terms of the second half and going a bit more attacking, was, an hour played, Rolando Aarons had arguably been one of the most exciting and dangerous players on the pitch, and they bring him off. Now, I know that they have set things in place, and it's one of the Carlos ways of doing things where they go, well, this player's, because of the workload and all that sort of stuff, they look at the science, don't they, and the stats. He's got to come off after 60 minutes. For me, you're against 10 men. You want your most influential, exciting, dangerous players on the pitch, whether the workload is going to be an extra half an hour for them or not. The points are worth it, in my opinion. And I was really surprised to see that change when he wanted to bring Holmes on. I understand that. But you don't, in my view, bring Holmes on for Rolando Aarons. You bring him on for somebody else, don't you? Even if you bring him on for Vallejo, who's sitting a little bit deeper, take Vallejo off, bring Holmes on, and let Holmes have a little bit more of an attacking, role in the centre of the park. I don't know what you guys thought, but I was staggered by that change at that time.
Yeah, I think you're right, Johnny. I think you put Holmes on as well as Aarons. I think interestingly, Brady called it right there. When teams sit back, we do find it difficult to break them down. And one something that I particularly picked up on, but I read the Stephen Chicken article, and one of the things that he picked up on was the fact that we now play a left-footed winger on left wing and a right-footed winger on right wing, whereas early season we played it opposite way around. Yeah. So what happens there is obviously your wingers will then naturally cut inside, which drags your fullback in, and our fullbacks used to bomb on into that space. On Saturday, we didn't seem to have that. You had your wingers really wide. There's no chance of an overlap there. Your fullbacks are not going to come inside because it's on their weaker foot as well. And I think that's probably why we got a lot more sort of passing from left all the way across back to right, back into the middle, back out wide, because there were no movement, there were no pulling Stoke players out of position. It's so easy to put two banks of four in against us at the moment, and you could just have 8 players because that 8 would block any attack that we go down. Interestingly enough, our goal came from a deflection. Why not shoot a bit more? If you don't shoot, you don't score, do you? Let's be honest. So we seem to be wanting to sort of almost get that perfect goal. Peeper shot, it took a deflection, ended up back at net. We need to be a little bit more inventive, a little bit different, think outside the box. Like you say there, Johnny's got a plan on 60, I'm going to do this. Well, if the game doesn't need that to happen on 60, don't do it. And I think that's where Carlos is still learning, or maybe a little bit naive, because he seems to have a plan at the start of the match and sticks to it rather than being reactive when things happen. Oh, this is my plan, I'm sticking to it, rather than, this has now happened, if we can do X, Y, and Z, I'll change it on the fly kind of thing. And I think at the moment, for me, don't have many criticisms of Carlos, because I think he's working with one hand tied behind his back at the moment with players that are available to him. But that is one thing that he does really need to improve on for me, is being able to make decisions in a game that are going to have a positive impact. Not just a like-for-like sub, or this is my plan, I'm sticking to it. It's being able to just decide on the fly that, look, this is what's happening, I'm going to change it and it's going to make it better kind of thing.
Why do you think he's done that in terms of Mbenza staying on the right and Aaron's being on the left? Because you'd have thought it could be. They don't seem to swap, do they? There's no change in terms of, you see a lot of these teams now, don't you? Oh, yeah, it's like switch sides. You saw Klopp the other week complaining to Salah and Mane because they decided to do that. But you see a lot of it at the moment, and for me, like you've said there, it's a dangerous ball in that box. Mbenza's delivery is fantastic and it's dangerous. And if he can cut in from that far side, it's deadly. But maybe it's something linked to Aaron's and the way he plays. And is he predominantly a left-sided player that plays on the left wing? I'm not sure. I don't know his background, but he was one of the outstanding players first half. I still think Toffolo got forward a little bit, but I think O'Brien were kind of making those runs instead. One day O'Brien was kind of supporting the striker and the winger a little bit more, and he was a bit more dynamic at the week. I thought he had a really good game, O'Brien, trying on the half turn again and driving forward. So, but it was there to be won, wasn't it? And I think he was shocked when he came off, and I definitely was shocked when he came off. I couldn't believe you'd taken our best player off, to be fair, when you're chasing a win. It were there to be taken, and I don't think their keeper got challenged enough during the game.
No, and I think, Pozzy, you made an interesting point for me. Whereas, like you say, Pippa having that shot and it deflects and goes in, I think you touched on it as well, Phil. Holmes, for me, when he came on, he put in a couple of nice balls in the box, and like you say, you want your striker to be there. But it's quite interesting because I suppose what really took my made me sit up and notice that was we don't seem to make many chances where it is that tapping. You know, it is 6 yards. The only goal I can really think of was Buchan against Bristol, and that was when it was a bit of a scramble in the box. But I mean, that's, you know, if we talk about issues with Town, you know, surely creating chances where you're 6 yards out and got a better chance of getting them. And for me, you know, you're probably going to get more goals that way. And I think, again, for this game really sums it up our season. We make, you know, we concede such an easy goal. We give a goal away so easily. And then we spend such a hard time trying to get one. And sometimes we do get one. Sometimes it's really well crafted. Sometimes it's a bit of luck. But we don't kill games off. You know, again, we were 1-0 up. It was early on. We were looking good, and then we just give it away. And I think it's a pattern we've seen this season. Really,
I think a positive to take from that one is that when you were pegged back, you didn't concede again very quickly, which has also become a bit of a pattern this season, hasn't it? You know, either going behind or conceding one to get pulled back level, and then conceding another within 4 or 5 minutes. And we've spoken about that quite a lot in terms of, you know, why that happens. And it isn't structure, you know, it isn't necessarily structure. They seem like they are organised in those scenarios. And the Bristol City was one of the examples, wasn't it? You know, it happened there. But you had everyone behind the ball. You had everyone in the right positions. Everyone was right. It was just a little lapse of concentration by Sarr, which allowed Jeju to get round the outside of him, didn't it? And he finished it brilliantly. Like, he couldn't have put it anywhere else, could he? And you got punished by that. But I think the positive from the weekend was that when Fletcher got the penalty and scored that, you didn't then look like you were going to concede another one straight away, which is something that has been a vulnerability I think, this season.
Yeah, I thought. Is that a reflection on Stoke's ability going forward, or is that a reflection? I mean, I think we defended well. I think Keogh, you know, we laughed about him previously, but I think he looks solid. He looks a good signing. Minus the 4 passes that were exactly the same as when he gave the ball away.
Yeah,
he made the same pass.
Strange, really strange, wasn't it? Yeah, really weird.
But thing is, though, again, we can go over it, but it just shows that that's what they're wanting them to do. So if he thinks that passes on and it's a pass to be made, they're sticking to the kind of information from the manager, aren't they? But it comfortable, wasn't it? I thought Pippa were good again, going forward and being a bit more dynamic. I'd still like to see him get in the game a little bit more. I think the opportunity for him there to get involved was brilliant. I enjoyed Vallejo's, or how you want to pronounce his name. You should be able to do it, shouldn't you? Vallejo or Vallejo. Like the bloody Yorkshire Alonso, wasn't he was like that. Just summed up kind of, I think, Stoke's performance, because there was zero pressure on him all game. But the positive thing was he was able to find forward passes, like kind of Eiting kind of passes where you break the lines, and then that was then the issue, because the amount of times that Buchan got the ball and ran forwards, or O'Brien, and had that opportunity to break forwards, there was then zero option for me. It was like, right, we've brought that line, we've got into the little pocket in between the midfield and the centre half. And now we're struggling. I thought Vallejo's performance was really good. It was nice to see that we've got a player there who was really, really comfortable on the ball and can actually. It's a different way of playing, isn't it? Can dictate the play kind of thing, and it was impressive for me at the weekend. But you know, a couple of players were shining lights, and I think it was just another struggle to score.
I think it's just reading some of the comments on YouTube, and Lee Oates has made a good point. It's something that I'd forgotten about. You know, if Campbell scores that header just before they get their penalty,
different game,
2-0 and game over. I know.
Yeah.
But we will be discussing, you know, forward line when we come to discuss transfers and stuff like that. But yeah, I'd totally forgotten about that. And that's
the big moment of the game, arguably. Arguably, that's the big moment of the game, isn't it? You know, he finishes that, you're 2-0 up, home and hosed, and let's say it pans out the same way, they get a man sent off. You can see out the second half, no problems.
You hit the target.
Sort of chances that we've got it.
Simple as that. It's a goal. Hit the target. For me,
you wouldn't see Booth missing then, would you?
No.
All done in bad way.
No, it won't be getting there. That's why.
Just Pozzy, you beat me to it. I was going to read out some of the comments. So Tweak said, just as frustrating as the Bristol game, but in a different way. Confidence needs a boost. Needs to play two strikers up front. I've noticed Julian said, "Hi fellas, what happened to the chap with the bushy beard who used to hold you guys in check?" That's Matt, by the way. So clearly he's enjoying my hosting. He is still with us, mate. Don't worry. But yeah, just before we move on from Stoke, is there anything else anybody wanted to cover? Bacuna's shot cleared off the line, but apart from that,
I think it was interesting speaking to Harry Toffolo afterwards, and Phil kind of mentioned it in terms of people getting forwards a little bit more at the weekend, and I thought Toffolo was as well, and he certainly was against Bristol City, and he kind of said when I spoke to him after the match that he's been encouraged to get back into the levels that he was at earlier in the season attacking wise, which suggested to me that they maybe have behind the scenes asked them to not necessarily be as attacking. And that'd be understandable, wouldn't it? You know, when you're losing games, you're conceding goals, you maybe think, do you know what? Let's not ask the fullbacks to be bombing on as much. Let's ask them to sit in a little bit more. You could maybe understand it. But it was quite interesting to hear him reveal that and say, you know, yeah, I've been asked to get back to the levels I was at attacking-wise earlier in the season, which I think tells you a little bit about them maybe changing things as this season goes on.
You could see, couldn't you? You could see both fullbacks. You know, we've been talking about Pippa and Toffolo being like our best players, and then all of a sudden they're nowhere near the top of the field.
Yeah.
And then the other day, Toffolo was some of the chances fell to him in the area. They always seem to fall to him. You know, he falls to a bloody defender. But yeah, you could tell that. So yeah, it is interesting, isn't it? You know, it'd be nice to have a bit of an insight in terms of. Well, I mean, I suppose you can't because obviously it leaks, but to know what they've been asked to do, it'd be really interesting.
Could also just be psychological that as a defender, you know, your first and foremost job is to not concede goals, I suppose. So even if, you know, it's not an actual instruction from Carlos, you know, hang back. For you, every time you get sort of halfway line, you're thinking, do you know what, we're letting a lot in here, and I'm a defender, and my job's to not let that happen. So psychologically, that's when you end up sitting deeper and deeper.
Maybe it's what Phil was saying earlier, you know, that you've got a left footer on the left side, a right footer on the right side, and they're in that space that the fullbacks would usually get into. So maybe the space isn't there for them. You know, Aarons is taking up the place and Benz is taking the space isn't there for them. You can't go and occupy an area that's not available for you, can you? So maybe it's that. Maybe it is just down to that structure and the fact that they haven't swapped them.
If you look at the performances though, when Crone was playing, when he received the ball on the touchline, and it wasn't an overlap, it was an underlap. So the fullbacks are always underlapping. They're never really going around the outside. It's always on the inside, which is obviously, for me, used to be the midfield run that would make that run into there. So I'm not sure about this left foot and right foot in terms of like being out wide. I just think whether they've been told to or not, I'm not sure. Yeah. Like you've said there, I think there probably is something in terms of that, you know, we're shipping a few goals in here. But
I suppose the underlap, if you do the underlap, what that does is it almost takes the attention of the fullback, doesn't it, to go with the underlap in some ways, which then opens the space for the right footer to cut in and get the shot away. So if you haven't got the right footer who's going to cut in and do that, then you can't do the underlap and you can't do the overlap either, because he's going to go and try the overlap himself, isn't he?
When we were kids, it would always get around
Johnny. Yeah, I was going to say your body position. You know, if you're right-footed on left wing, you're naturally going to stand chest in, aren't you? Whereas if you're left-footed, you're going to basically stand that way. So I think, although physically in that space, you know, it's like football. It's that technical these days. A 45-degree turn on the body can change the whole aspect of the pitch, and I think it's probably something that he might look at, and you know, hopefully he listens to the pod, and you know, we're all experts, obviously, and they can swap it next week on Saturday.
Just for me, like with Toffolo, I think there's two things. Obviously, I know we've talked about it a lot, Poz, but you know, there's 12 games in 43 days. Toffolo played 90 minutes from pretty much everyone, so I think he's a bit cooked. I think this as well. You know, a lot when we talk about this, we look at a lot of what we did wrong, but I do think Michael O'Neill, you know, he is a good tactician, and I think he's kind of aware in opposition of catching up to how good Toffolo was earlier in the season. But you make a good point about the overlap and underlap. But yeah, that's it. I mean, unless anyone else wants to say anything about Stoke, no? Yeah, not a bit frustrating. We will move on though, because obviously we will talk the transfer window, but I think the club were very keen to post this all over social media yesterday. Someone got a new contract, and that man is Jonathan Hogg. So he signed an extension.
You kept that quiet. We should have promoted that a bit more.
To be fair, Cozzy criticises social media a lot, but I did enjoy the aggressive rock music and all of Hogg's tackles in the video. I thought that was brilliant. So credit where credit's due. But yeah, Hogg signed a new contract due to be expiring this summer, but he signed it for 2 years to keep him to 2023 with an option of a year. So he's made over 250 appearances for Town now. 8 seasons been with the club. Corberán called him a very special player after the 3-0 win against Millwall. And I would say, arguably, I think he's been our best player this season before he got injured. You could maybe argue with Toffolo. What about you, Phil? Do you think we're missing him at the moment?
I really hope it means that he loves this club. When he wrote it in his Instagram post, I think he does, doesn't he? I think he's been solid. I think last season he struggled a little bit, but I think he's kind of thrived this year, and he's been back to his normal kind of confident self, dropping in and receiving and just playing simple. Do you know what I mean? So I don't think we've missed him, to be honest. I think it's made a bit of a difference. I think you have a bit of a weak belly then, don't you? If you're missing kind of like that reliability in the middle. So, but yeah, I think it's a great signing. I think it's a signing that you need. He knows the club inside out. When we go on to these signings in a minute or whatever we do, you need a bit of consistency. I think that's my worry, that we're not having that consistency at the moment, and he will be. You know, we don't know what's going to happen with people like Schindler and etc. End of the year, so. That was our worry, that it'd be wholesale changes all the time, and I think it's done it too much since we've left the Premiership. I think it needed to be more of a fixed squad, and I think certainly bringing Hoggy, signing another contract, will definitely help. So we'll see.
Poz, what about yourself? Because I think you were like me. We kind of criticised him last season, but he seems to have turned it around. Hoggy.
Yeah, I mean, I remember discussing Hogg and the contract before, and I said I wouldn't give him one. And to be honest, as good as it's been this season, I still kind of...
Just say what you think.
To be fair, he's done well this season. My only concern, and one of the reasons why I probably wouldn't have renewed it, is he's 32 now, I think, so he's got another 2 years. He's going to be 34 by the end of it. He is pinnacle of fitness, isn't it? Let's be fair, when he's fit, but he's got that little niggling hip injury, which injuries like that, as you're getting older, are only going to get worse and worse. So how many games is he going to play? If he's there as a sort of backup, because but if he plays 50% of games and someone is nurtured alongside him, and Hogg can pass on his wisdom and stuff like that, then all right, fair enough. If he's being signed as to build a team round, no, for me, he's not young enough for that anymore. He's on his way out. He'll be used sparingly, I would imagine. Like I say, that hip injury does kind of niggle on me a little bit. But yeah, last season, we've slated him on here before, and he has come back, this season and strong. And I think, like Phil says, you without him in there, we do look a little bit soft, and there's no one really that can put a tackle in there. So yeah, a part of me kind of is I'll sit on fence. I'll do a Matt Glennon and sit on fence. I think on one hand, I think it's a decent to extend it for 2. I certainly probably would not be extending it again if we have that option, because I think it would just be way past it then. But if he's going to be used bit part, then fair enough. But if not, if he's going to be built a team around,
you're talking about something after. Don't worry about after. Worry about now. Worry about now. Stop worrying about. I agree. I agree exactly what you've said there. I don't think he's going to be signed to build a team around. That's no chance. No. He's not that kind of player anyway. I literally think it is for the experience and for the fact that he can still do a job. And he's not he's not going to be fit enough to play a full season. So that kind of role in a club and that kind of person, that character is massive in a football club, and people need that. And they need that person to go to. And I know you don't just sign people for that reason, but I think it makes a massive difference. And like you just mentioned there, his performances this year have been better. So I think it does warrant that extra, 2 years just for that consistency. But yeah, I think you're 100% right. Last year it was kind of past your sell by date, wasn't it, kind of thing. But it just shows the kind of character of the lad to kind of improve his game again and make a difference, which he has done.
Kind of reminds me of Dean Whitehead when Wagner were there. That sort of year in his career, and Whitehead got an extra, and if that meant us doing what we did and Hogg can do something similar, then fair enough.
Whitehead always looked tired, didn't he, when he came on? When he came on as a sub, he always looked tired straight away for me. but he could zing a ball all over the place.
Thing is as well, Pozza, he'll 2 years, he'll get a testimonial. You don't see them anymore. So that's worth it just for that. Jonny, what about yourself? What do you think of the move?
I think you've nailed it between you, really. I think that there is the concern of that hip injury, and you're right, Pozza. It's one of those where it can be a niggling injury that reoccurs, and it already has done, hasn't it? We can see it come back again, and you hope that isn't the case. We know how intense the training regime is as well under Carlos, and you do think, 32-year-old, 34 by the end of this contract coming to an end, you do wonder about that and the intensity of that. But he does seem to be one of the fittest, and finishes the bleep test and all that sort of stuff according to all the reports that we hear, don't we? So, but I think as well, what Phil's saying about having that character and that continuity in the dressing room. We know there are a couple of local lads in that dressing room. We know the youngsters are local lads, but we know, Danny Ward wanted to come back up here, didn't he? And Fraser Campbell's a local lad as well. So there's already that thread there. And I know he's not necessarily a local lad, but he's been at the club for that long that he is a local lad, isn't he? And he knows exactly what it is. And if, as Phil says, you can have a young player brought in to be alongside him in terms of in the training anyway, not necessarily playing in place of Hogg, but for the long term, the amount that they will learn from someone like that, from a seasoned pro who has played at this level and higher for year after year after year after year, and what it takes to do that mentally, not just physically, but mentally to be able to do that. I think it's a shrewd move by the club to make sure that they've got him, make sure that he is staying with them for a couple more years, even if he isn't going to be a 35, 40, 45 player at game season. I think it's certainly worthwhile doing.
It's like the learned behaviours for the kids, isn't it? The kids will learn that kind of behaviour. It's. I've been out of the game for a while now, but for me, when I was coming out of the game, it's gone. The kids nowadays, it's not the same. And Hoggies, you can see his attitude towards the game, his preparation, his attitude towards opponents, his teammates, is just how it used to be and how it should be. So hopefully, these learnt behaviours from these young kids will shine through. So. Me and
Matty were talking about that the weekend. We were talking about do you remember after the Plymouth game, the Romany Critchlow interview afterwards that he did with us? And he was very, they'd lost 3-2, and he was very upbeat, and he was very like, oh yeah, I thought I played quite well, blah, 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 blah. And at the time, I was looking at Matty, I was presenting at the time, Matty was co-commentating, Hoggy was doing the interview, and Matty sat next to me, shaking his head. And now you won't get Jonathan Hogg doing an interview like that after a 3-2 defeat to Plymouth in the Cup. And you got it. You understood it from the kid's perspective, and you're never going to nail the kid for it. And Hoggy didn't nail the kid because that's not our job. We're not there to nail people for stuff like that. But it's not necessarily what I imagine you guys probably wanted to hear when you're listening to it afterwards. Player goes, I played quite well today. I was quite happy with that. I thought we put in a really good performance for a young team. Line about, you're out of the cup, mate. You've lost 3-2 to a team that's below you.
It shows how the game's changed because what they'll be told is to look for the positives in your performance.
Yeah.
So it's all positive.
And that's what happens in youth football, isn't it? You can lose 4-0 in youth football, but the coach afterwards will say, actually, we did really well. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it is difficult, isn't it? And you hit the nail on the head there in terms of saying, like, it's always about what we want to hear as fans. Fans want to, like, why is he not saying that? Like, why has he done this? It's all about us. Really, it should be. It should be about the players. So at the end of the day, like, I know Critchlow, it ain't what we want to hear. Yeah. But if he performs well next game, at least that's made him feel better.
Yeah. Yeah, true, yeah.
Sign of the times, unfortunately. Sign of the times.
Sure, Hoggy would give him a shout if he was on the same pitch as him.
Exactly, yeah.
Hoggy's one of those that if he does something wrong, he'll still shout at somebody else.
Oh yeah. That's what I miss about live games, mate.
I had a few people who played with me at Huddersfield, and I won't name names because it might get back to them. But it used to be a massive bugbear to me because used to make mistakes, and then they'd either, well, I'm not going to say who they turn around to, but they'd always someone else. I'm like, own your own mistakes, because I tell you what, as soon as I walk in that change room, I apologise to every single one of them, and I apologise a lot when I was playing.
Right, mate. Well, if you guys are ready, should we move on to the thing that everyone wants us to talk about? Oh, look, he's ready. He's ready. Right. We're of course talking about the transfer window. Now, I realise this is going to get quite heated. So what I will just say to temper is I actually thought the window as a whole was okay. We got some, but I thought yesterday it was absolutely dreadful. So 6 signings. So I'll read them in order. We've got Danny Grant, Rolando Aarons, Sorba Thomas, Richard Keogh, Dwayne Holmes, and Jason Lutweiler. Phil, I'm going to ask you about the keeper because obviously he joined on deadline day. You might have missed it in between the Hogg tweets. What I spoke to a Fleetwood fan, and what was quite interesting was apparently Joey Barton, when he was the boss, wanted him to stay on and offered to pay his wages himself. So it kind of tells you. I've heard he's a bit of a solid keeper. So Phil, I'm not going to ask you about this keeper because I know as we don't really know anything about him, any of us here.
Well, the goalkeeper started at Basel, and then he's played at Middlesbrough and Shrewsbury.
This analyst, look at this analyst, mate.
Fair, goalkeepers are different. Goalkeepers are totally different. So I did a little bit. We spoke, didn't we? We messaged before. Kept a number of consecutive clean sheets at Shrewsbury. So he's played at Shrewsbury for a long time. You asked Matty, me and Matty speak about this all the time. I did a coaching badge once with Ian Bennett, and this was years ago. And then he ended up coming to Huddersfield, and we had a laugh because we were two small goalkeepers. And he actually said playing in the Premier League was easier than playing lower league, because obviously being a smaller keeper, balls into the box, etc. Goalkeeper's job is literally to save the ball. So communicate well behind the defence, be commanding, get yourself in the right position, save the ball. Simple as that. So he's done that in the past. This keeper, obviously, he could have run into the wrong manager. It might not have worked out. Other keepers might have come forward and performed really well, and he might have just been that unlucky keeper. Which there is a few unlucky keepers that land on a team. Someone else plays well, and then you don't get that chance, and you move on. He could actually be that kind of person. So they've obviously done the homework on him, and my issue obviously is that maybe if he gets called upon, he won't be ready. And then obviously the other issues are the fact that why we're bringing a keeper in, because he's here to cover somebody. So is he here to cover Ryan, or is he here to cover Pereira, which I'm guessing he is, which then, and I'll probably go on to this when we talk about strikers, which then worries me about the transfer policy early on in the season in terms of bringing in keepers that aren't fit for purpose, or players who aren't fit for purpose. So yeah, I think it's probably a good signing. It probably means, and I've been in this position, it probably means that they don't have any trust in the younger keepers who are below. So that's how I would read it. But I just think, obviously, it's not what the fans want to see, that they're bringing in another keeper when fans are wanting to see another striker.
Well, I was just going to ask Phil, because obviously when you came into the team, you had some senior lads. Everyone seems to think that this guy's going to be the backup to Schofield. How valuable will it be for Schofield to have like an experienced pro, like you say, in and around him, like learning with him? And
massively. I think the thing is, it's having a goalkeeper with you who actually is moving in the same direction that you want to move into. So not kind of stabbing you in the back. It's the keepers union, and I've come across a few of these while I've played. Definitely not Matty. Me and Matty were like that. But I've come across a few of these, and I think for Ryan now, I think he could be, if he's coming as a backup, it could be a really good asset to Ryan in terms of giving him some support and encouragement. I think Ryan started brilliant. Obviously got a lot to learn, but it could be, it could be a good sign in terms of that. So yeah, like I say, it goes back to why they brought him in really, and what's that all about? Is I don't know. I can't really say. I don't know what I mean. Has anyone seen what the manager's said in terms of why he's coming?
Well, my question would be, we'll speak to Carlos this week, so he'll definitely get asked that question. I think it'll probably be Thursday we get to speak to him.
Yeah.
My question would be, is he coming in as backup to Ryan?
Yeah.
Is this saying that Ryan is our number one, as was viewed to be the case with Ben Hamer leaving? And understandably, you get that. You kind of go, okay, yeah, they're going to give this young lad a chance. They rate him excellent. But then on deadline day, they've seemingly rushed to bring in a keeper who's an experienced goalkeeper. Have they done that to back up Ryan, or have they done that because they're not 100% convinced on Ryan? I don't know. That'd be interesting to know.
For me, that'd be poor management. If Ryan's played a consecutive number of games now, he needs to stay in. For me, rightly or wrongly, if he's the right man for the job, I'm not sure, but they've made that decision now, and he needs to be the keeper. But you won't get an answer. You won't get
no, of course.
You won't get a straight answer.
No.
It's journalists. I have no idea how you approach things, because you'll never get a straight answer from a manager. They'll go around the houses, and half the time you've got to read between the lines, haven't you? So,
well, it'd be more interesting to hear what Lee Bromby has to say about it, wouldn't it? rather than Carlos, really. You know, Carlos works with what he gets in some ways. It'd be more interesting to hear what Lee Bromby would have to say about it. You know, why did you want to make that move on deadline day? Why did you feel you needed that? And if it is, we felt we needed someone more experienced to help Ryan develop. Fair play, fair dues. You know, that's actually really good management if that is the case, because they've realised that there's a bit of a weakness there in that experience with Ben moving. So fair play if that is the move. I just wonder whether that is.
Has Lee Bromby played with this lad? Because all our signings seem to come from people who Lee Bromby knows. So I'm kind of reading between the lines.
I don't think he played for Canada, did he, Lee? I don't think he played for Canada.
I did not. Well, you might have done.
You know what? It's an interesting one, Jonny, because you've just said there, you know, if that is the reason why he's bringing this person in, just communicate that in press release. It's not hard, is it? And it just, you know, you always have a little snippet from someone. You know, we've signed so and so. There's got to be a comment from someone at the club, and all it needs to be is we felt we were a little bit short in goalkeeping department. We could get an injury, and it leaves us with one first team keeper,
which would be fair. Yeah, that's absolutely fair.
Comment again. We brought him in because we feel Ryan's a young lad and he needs a little bit of experience. It'll help him progress. And you sit as a fan and you read that and you think, do you know what? It's not bad reasoning, you know, like you've just said. But just to see we've signed a random keeper that no one's really ever heard of after just letting Ben Hamer go. Now, don't get me wrong, I feel that Ben Hamer probably instigated that move more than Town. He's not going to want to sit on bench at Town. He's proactive and gone, look, I don't want to sit on your bench, I'll go. And as you know, you let him go. I think Phil's right. If Schofield gets injured, we've got Pereira, and then who? Is it a youth team player? Now, bearing in mind Schofield's young, are we delving into under 16s, under 17s level, and you don't really want somebody coming in like that if you're potentially going to be down in a relegation fight? So on paper, it does make sense, but communicate better. Again,
well, I mean, I think Lee Bromby. I think in the press release, Lee Bromby did say, you know, it's up to him to show his experience, and I think to quote him, he said to push Ryan every day. You know, which therefore does suggest, you know, Ryan's got the number 1 shirt, and Jason is going to be pushing him every day. But
so what's Pereira doing?
Well, yeah, that's a very good question, isn't it?
And this is a problem because they're not going to come out and say that he's pushing Ryan for a shirt, because it shows that they've made a mistake again in the transfer market early doors, which people have blatantly seen. And we knew before, didn't we?
Just jumping on, because we're talking about Lee Bromby. So he said, with Hamer departing earlier this month, we had the desire to add a third senior goalkeeper to the group to ensure we have the right level of competition and depth between now and the end of the season. He arrives with good experience. It's his job to show us what he can do every day and to push Schofield, the current number 1. So again,
there you go.
So sorted that.
To be fair, if they've got him on a decent wage, then it's a sure sign, isn't it? Because it's like, again, it's another bit of experience, but. And then you could also argue with the fact that if Ryan is your first choice, he's only young, and you do need a couple of experienced heads, because if not, then you've got a young keeper to start, an experienced keeper who isn't an experienced keeper second, and then I've played more games than him probably, and then a young kid behind. So maybe it is, like I say.
Or is Joe Pereira number 2 still? Is it the 2 youngsters and Jason's been brought in as a number 3? I'm sure they didn't sell it to him that way, if that is the case, but you never know.
No.
I'm quite impressed how much we've got out of this keeper. Also, do you want to add anything?
Was this not written down?
It's not an exciting signing, but you can see it. And to be fair, Hamer will have been on a lot more than he was. So I think it's a good wage trim. Now, before we get on to the strikers or not so strikers, Diakhaby left in the middle of the night, pretty much, to join the French second division side Amiens. He's not been
Amiens.
Do you like that? Yeah. Enjoying it.
Someone did a GCSE.
I did GCSE French. I got a C, actually. I thought I was going to fail, but I passed. So, yeah, fun fact for everyone there. Obviously, he's not been the most favourite player on here, which is a bit of an understatement. But what I will say is we've criticised him before, but I'll be nice here before everyone else is. But I hope it works out for him. It clearly didn't work out for him at Town. I don't think, obviously, that's down to him partly, but I also think it's just poor recruitment, as we've talked about. So, I hope he gets to rebuild his career, because, you know, it wasn't happening at Town. He went on loan to Forest. It wasn't happening there. So, I think it's good that we've got rid of him, and good that we've got him off the wage bill. And I hope it works out for him. But Pozza, what do you want to say about it, mate?
As you know, I went a little bit. I had one of them moments last night. You know when some sort of like rage just comes over you now. I was trying my best not to get bothered by it because I've said on here a few times, it's transitional season and all this and all that. But I don't know. Looking at the window as a whole, we've got your Grant and your Thomas. They've come in. They're not first team players, are they? Let's be fair. They're coming in to be bedded in B team over the course of the season or whatever. So for me, a signing, if you're making a signing and they're not ready to play first 11, don't class them as an actual signing. You know, you brought them to the club, fair enough. Don't have the big terrier inbound reveal and all that sort of stuff. Just bring them in as a B team player and, just slip them in back door almost without anybody noticing. Keogh, a needs must for me. Again, don't really disagree with that too much. Could we have got someone a little bit better than Keogh? Potentially. Again, we went through reasons on the last pod, I think, with Keogh, so I won't go rake over all ground there. Aarons and Holmes, again, the sort of signings that I would sort of be expecting to come. They don't excite me massively, but the sort of first team level, are they miles better than what we already have? I won't say they're miles better. Are they going to pull the club up from being, bottom third to suddenly be a playoff side? For me, probably not. But, the relatively young. Aarons were obviously his main target, which we were obviously going to bring him in. Holmes were a little bit of a strange one. I didn't think, I maybe thought with Holmes coming in that Pritchard might have been on his way, and it were a replacement for Pritchard. Obviously, he's still with us, so maybe the move that were sort of cited for Pritchard has broke down. But I think Phil sort of already mentioned it, and it's what I've got written down here, though. We seem to be covering failings that we made in the summer again. Everyone's going on about a striker. We signed Danny Ward. Pretty much every single person were aware of his injury record. Countless times I read on Twitter, countless times we mentioned it on here, he's not going to be able to play every single game. We knew that. Why didn't club look at that and think, no, there's potential here that he's going to be injured? We had Ward and we had Campbell. We had Karoma, who for me is a little bit of a Carlan Grant. He's not a striker. He's a wide left forward, so he's not a striker. So we had two. And then I remember Chicken putting it to Phil, what about a striker, really early on, and his response, typical cocky, arrogant, well, we've got 5 strikers at the club. Well, actually, how's that working out now, Phil? Because 2 very, very rarely seen. One's, made out of mashed potato and can't play more than, 2 games without getting injured. Campbell, for all his hard work and his endeavour and his running and his bringing people into play, and I get that that's part of his game in the system that we play, but he struggles to finish. He's never scored a load of goals, and we've seen this season his missed chances. That header on Saturday were a perfect example, and argumentably you could argue at that point that header miss has cost us a win there. You look at who we were rumoured with, Caden Jackson from Ipswich. They're almost desperation, wasn't it, after the window had actually shut. I had a quick look. He scored 12 goals in 2 seasons. The guy won a competition on Facebook to become a footballer. I mean, what is going on? We were a Premier League club 2 years ago, and this is the sort of player that we're looking to sign. Really? Is it Adebayo, the guy who chose Luton? Luton Town over Huddersfield Town? If you'd have said that to me, not even else in the Premier League, a couple of seasons before that, why would anybody choose to go to...
Well, it might not be, in fairness to Town, it might not be that he chose Luton. It might have been that Town didn't think he was worth the money that Luton were happy to pay for him. Do you know what I mean? He might not have had the actual choice, the player. In fairness to him, it might have just been that Luton were willing to pay. My understanding was it was about 400 grand they wanted for him. They might have been willing to pay closer to that than Huddersfield were willing to pay because they might not have thought it was worth it. And January is a really difficult window, isn't it? You don't want to waste money in this window to try and do something that could be a short-term stopgap, and if they feel that 400 grand or whatever the fee actually ended up being for him is a lot of money for a player who scored 12 goals in League Two, if they felt that was too much, then you have to say fair enough to the club. I'm not here to defend them or to hammer them. You have to say fair enough to them if they went, do you know what? Too rich for us. We don't think he's worth that money. We're not going to pay it. We'll find out, won't we? Very quickly, whether he was worth that sort of money and whether he actually has an impact.
Yeah. I just think the sort of names that we were looking at, who are these players? There's no one that you've heard of and gone, do you know what, if we sign him, that's a really good signing. It all seemed a little bit desperate. And for me, it's not like this has just happened. It's not like we've had 3 strikers to pick from and 2 have suddenly got long-term injuries, and it's like, oh shit, we need a striker. This has been a problem now, well, for many seasons, but certainly from the start of this season, we don't score enough goals. Bar Corona, really. You know, when you look at that team sheet and who's going to get you the goals, and it just seems a little bit of a shambles. You know, recruitment team, you've had all this time to line up potential options, yet at the very last minute, we're still seemingly scrambling. You know, obviously you don't know what's going on behind the scenes fully, so you can only go on what you see. You know, and there's names flying out here, there, and everywhere. The guy from Celtic, that looks like we pulled out of that, so that might be something, Jonny, like you just said. It maybe Celtic wanted too much, or we didn't deem him the wage that he was commanded. You know, we're not prepared to pay it, but without knowing figures, you know, you mentioned 400 grand there. Are we really so hard up that we can't spend 400 grand, or is it that we don't want to because we don't think it's worth it? As a fan, you've got to kind of, you know, read between the lines. And I just think we brought Carlos in, we made such a big hoo-ha about the new way that we're going to do things, and we're not giving him the tools that he needs to be able to play the style of football that he wants. I get the COVID, I get it's January, I get we've still got some big earners to get off the books, but I don't know, it all just seemed, I don't know if you ever watched that Amazon documentary on Sunderland, that deadline day when they were, you know, I think they bought Will Grigg for about 9 million because they got desperate. And I'm not suggesting we start doing stuff like that, but it just had that feel about it last night where there's 4 or 5 people in a room just ringing up anybody and everyone, you know, Big Dave at Dog and Duck. Do you fancy a game, mate? Come on, get down. We're at, you know, you start with a list of 10, 15, and we seem to be at 16, 17 and 18 on that list, and we didn't even get anybody in. It just worries me. Not so much that we didn't get a striker in now. We just don't fill me with any confidence that in January, when we need a massive squad overhaul, we've got a lot of players leaving. Is it going to be the same? Are we going to miss out on players? Have we got a plan? It all just seems a little bit chaotic, and I think from me and a lot of other fans, that's the worrying thing. Not so much that we didn't get a striker. The fact that the planning behind it didn't seem to be there. There was no strategy behind it all. It were, you know, it's almost firefighting rather than being proactive and thinking, look, this is how we want to play. These are the type of players that we need. This is the list of players, and we're going to go out and get them. It's who's available, who's cheap. Let's go for them. And, you know, you guys might have different opinions on it, and, you know, maybe a little bit more rational than you're thinking of myself. But I don't know, last night I just seemed to get a bit of rage about it all.
What about yourself, Phil?
Yeah, last night I think probably I don't know if it were most frustrating I've ever had, or whether I'm not bothered anymore in terms of the fact that I have no idea what the plan is. Like what is that? I feel like we're just buying players just to fill spaces. I don't think we're buying players because they're going to make a massive difference to the team. I think Aaron's obviously, I think he's a bit of class. He looks decent. He does look really good. And obviously he's probably not had the service or the things that gone right. But Saturday Saturday proved, you know, that the goal where he didn't pass a few, and you can see he's got a little bit about him. But everything else just seems to be kind of like a stopgap. It kind of seems to be filling a hole because we've got injuries. I feel like we're just buying people because we're short of numbers. That is the concern in general, isn't it? It really is the concern. I had a few names written down here that I looked at that have moved. Troy Parrott, loads of potential. He's gone to Ipswich. Now, he's massive potential from Tottenham, but are we not looking at people like this because we've got Zone? So we've got Phillips. So is Phillips going to play more? Is he going to kind of push forward a little bit more and play? Because he's a striker. One of our 5, is he? Is he one of us 5? Or one of us 6? Will he be classed as 6? I don't know. Tom Ince moved to Luton. So what's happened to him? Because I was gutted when he left. Because for me, he was one of the only quality players one of the players who had a bit of quality on the ball. You know, just like a little thing. Glenn Murray. But are these the kind of players that we're wanting? We've said this before. I don't want to just bring journeymen in who are towards the end of the career. They're just going to pick up a wage. But what is the plan? So we're all complaining about the fact that we're not bringing strikers in. We've got Campbell and we've got Ward, who they brought in at the start of the year, who should be a striker. So we've got 2 there. So we have got 2 strikers. I mean, how many do you need in a team? Is it what's the number?
Yeah, that's the point, isn't it? Maybe they didn't feel as desperate as maybe supporters feel. You know, I think you've got to judge the window. And Brady said, you know, he thinks the window's been okay, but yesterday was horrendous. I think that's quite interesting because yesterday's just hyped up because it's transfer deadline day and because Sky Sports have Jim White sat in a bright yellow tie. That's all that is. Forget that. I've got no time for the whole hype around deadline day because I think you end up doing some terrible deals on deadline day if you do end up trying to do something because it's deadline day. And maybe they look at it and do think it's been nearly 2 months since Koroma got his injury now. Got injured against Wednesday, didn't he? Which was first week of December. So they said it was 3 months. So he's probably got a month to go until he's probably going to be back. And then, as you've just said there, Phil, how many strikers do you need? All right, 5. Have they got 5? Probably not. Is Koroma a man who can lead the line on his own and hold the ball up in the way that's needed as well? Probably not. But Danny Ward can. And in the summer, they probably didn't expect to have Danny Ward as injured as he has been. Okay, some would say that they should have maybe foreseen that, but they still couldn't tell, could they? And again, I'm not here to defend the club, but just looking at it from a kind of a neutral perspective without that fan hat on and that fury around deadline day, you look at it and go, well, maybe they actually feel with Koroma back fit in a month's time, with Danny Ward back fit imminently, hopefully for a longer period than he has been so far, and with Campbell still putting in the shifts and 90 minute after 90 minute after 90 minute, which he hasn't done previously in his career. I think he'd only done 3 90 minutes in a row at his previous club once, I think it was. So they're actually happy with what they're getting out of him. Maybe not the goals, but okay, workload they're getting out of him. I know Cozzy will be shouting at this saying, but the striker's there to score goals. But ultimately the striker isn't always there to score goals in this setup, in this sort of side. So maybe yesterday they were quite relaxed actually about the way that they were trying to handle things. If they could have got somebody for the right deal, they'd have probably done something. But they might feel with those 3, they're all right.
Well, the issue is we're all looking. The point is, I mean, I 100% agree with what you're saying because in this formation, they're not expected to. It's the link up play, isn't it? And it's the progression of the pitch. But when you're given that opportunity as a striker, no matter whether you're a hold-up player or what, you've got to score those. So I think for me, this has made it worse in this transfer window because of that. Because it's kind of like what are we doing then? Because who do you bring in? Because who's moved to a club that's an outstanding forward that's going to go and bang in loads of goals? Someone we spoke on Twitter the other day. I spoke to some fella. I have no idea who he is, and everyone's got their own opinion on the game, and I totally accept it. And I mentioned Lee Gregory. I played with Lee Gregory at Halifax. Lee Gregory is a finisher, right? As a goalkeeper, you know for a fact that kid is a finisher, and he's a grafter, right? But fans will look, and they only want to see what they want to see. So Lee Gregory is, I think, most he scored. This fella told me must have been 10 goals or something in a season, right? I know for a fact Lee Gregory is a finisher, right? Maybe it's not worked out quite well for him. Naki Wells scored 10 goals when we went up that year. He was our striker. Were we complaining about him when we went up? No, we weren't. So the issue is that you get to a point now where people are like, we need a new striker. Well, who are you going to bring in? Who are we actually going to bring in? Like this guy from Walsall, possibly you that just said how many goals he scored. Like, what's all that?
12. I think it was 12. Is it in League Two? Is it? Yeah.
So 12 in League Two, but then we're all complaining because we didn't get him in front of Luton. Well, thank God we didn't get him. if we're going to go off for stats, thank God we didn't get him. You can't just go off for stats. You've got to go off of the player in general, and you never know. One player might move to one club and score an absolute bloody handful of goals. Jamie Vardy went to he scored at every club he went to. He went to Leicester, didn't score any goals when he first rocked up.
Jordan Rhodes bagged them for you lot. Hasn't done much since in terms of getting up to large numbers, has he?
Yeah.
I just think like I was saying earlier, though, it's not the fact that Jonny, you mentioned there that the club were relaxed about the fact that we didn't get a striker in.
Maybe.
No, potentially, yeah. But if you're that relaxed about it, you're not linked with 6 different strikers all in one short space of time. For me, anyway, you 6 days before a window and you're like, look, there's no one really out there, and nothing comes of it. But the fact that there were so many rumours about so many different players, to me, it's a bit of a. Again,
there is a lot of clickbait though. There's a hell of a lot of clickbait out there, a hell of a lot, and this is the thing what it's judged on. Not the old saying of there's no smoke without fire. I don't buy that anymore. There is a lot of smoke without fire because smoke gives you clicks and clicks give you adverts.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. I saw that message about Lee Gregory, town in for Gregory. I messaged him. I haven't heard a peep.
Yeah.
I think. I just want to clarify with my deadline day thing. I think what I'll say is, and I don't know if you agree with this, Poz being, well, same with you, Phil, being a fan, but The club, I agree with what you're saying, Johnny, how, if the club were relaxed about it, it's fine. But I think Ward got injured, 10 days ago? And the club haven't said anything. But listening to what Stephen Chicken said and, what we've heard from others, it does seem that the club were looking at bringing someone in if the deal was right. So I think the issue is...
Yeah, if the deal was right, I'd agree with that, yeah.
No, I agree. Well, good. But I think the thing is, if the club has suddenly changed its tactic to, we do need a striker, I don't understand why it's left deadline day. I know deals can run over and stuff like that, but you look at bringing in Keogh, who's on a 6-month deal. Again, it's like Phil says, what type of striker do we want? Do we want a stopgap for 6 months and then we look at it in the summer? Because there would be strikers out there if that's what we want. Like you touched on. I mean, with David Nugent or Greg, there'll be someone like that, a championship proven, and that seemed the people we're kind of getting linked to. I think the frustrating thing is, and again, I get exactly what you're saying about deadline day. Town became that club where they're the championship team who need a striker. So agents link their players because they want to force a move. It doesn't necessarily mean there's any truth in that. But I think, from kind of the rumours, we saw and heard, it looked like they were trying to bring someone in. And I think I can see why fans are frustrated because you look at Aaron's and what happened in the summer. That was meant to be happening. That was nearly done and then it collapsed. And it does look like they're leaving it late to the last minute and can't get it over the line. Again, we're not inside, so we don't know. But I can see why people are frustrated. And if the club stuck to their guns and were like, we don't need a striker, then I think people would kind of get on it. But it seems there was a change in tact. And
this is a problem. This is a problem in summer. We all say we need a striker. Then obviously we've got a few points, got to 31, and everyone's like, we probably don't need a striker because Corona can go bang loads of goals. But actually, we still need a striker, and this is probably, and I can totally understand why they haven't brought these certain strikers in. But this is why fans are they want to know what's going on, because actually, why not spend a little bit of money on the striker you actually want and you know that's going to make a difference? And it all boils down to what's happened from the Premier League and the money and where it's gone. Because we have no idea where this money is, and we have no idea if we're ever going to be able to spend that kind of money again. That's the problem. Because surely there's a striker that we could have teased out. For me, like you mentioned, Johnny, January transfer window, do one, because you're not going to get what you want from that. Yeah. It's all come from summer, and we should.
But they might have also, if you're looking at it from that perspective, January transfer window, you're not going to get what you want from it. Maybe they view it that way as well, and maybe they did with Danny Ward 10 days ago or so. Think, do you know what? We might try and get someone if the deal's right. But they might have also put quite a lot of eggs in a basket for the summer. And I'm not saying they're going to go spend millions of pounds in the summer. That I'm not. No one's expecting that. But they might feel they're all right for this season to wait until the summer, and that's dangerous. Don't get me wrong. That's dangerous. You're 7 points above the drop zone right now, and many teams below you have a game in hand. Some have 2, some have 3. It's a dangerous position to be in when you're losing games and you're not scoring enough goals. Absolutely, I think it's risky, but they might feel with the players coming back, we're going to get enough points to keep us in the division this year, and maybe even finish mid-table somewhere. And then in the summer, because we haven't had to splash out 400 grand on a striker who ends up scoring 2 goals between now and the end of the season, and then we realise he's probably not going to be the one to take us to the next level. They might in the summer, and don't forget, COVID's having a massive impact on all clubs as well. They might decide in the summer we can maybe loosen the purse strings a little bit. That might be wrong, but they might have thought further down the line as opposed to thinking January, which I think is a dreadful window. And it was shown yesterday about how little deals were done across the board.
Yeah, there's lots of scenarios.
Kind of got a little bit hung up on that. We need a striker kind of thing, and I get that, but I think it does go back to the summer. We're talking about Campbell and Ward as the 2 strikers. Let's be honest, because you can't class Phillips and you can't class Harriott. Phil, when he said we had 5, it was a load of bollocks basically. We haven't got 5. We've got 2, and we've got a left wingers forward in Corona. So if you're going to go down that game, you've got to then start counting Mbenza because he plays exactly the same, just on the other side. You've got to count Diakhaby, as well. So, have we got 5 or have we got 8 or 7 or whatever it is? But I've just had a really quick look, and people talk about Danny Ward's injury. He's played 90 minutes once all season. We're halfway through the season. He's played 90 minutes once.
It's not good enough.
Then you've got Campbell, who's an older striker. He's running himself into the ground. A fair play to the fella. I'm surprised. I bet he can't walk half at the time because he must be knackered because he's old. He's an older striker playing a very physical, active role. Now, even if Danny Ward is 100% fit, you've still only got Campbell and Ward. Now, they're both very similar sort of players in the way that they play that role. So even then, if them two are fully fit, you still need a third, just as a different type, a big tall guy, a big 6 foot odd bloke who can just come on and win headers.
That's what Karoma is, isn't it? Not the big tall 6 foot striker. But what I'm saying is he's the third different type, because you've now got Aarons who play out on the left. You've got Aarons who play out there, won't he? So that does free up Karoma somewhat to also be included as a striker, doesn't it? I might be wrong.
It would be, but it wouldn't be the sort of main middle striker like Campbell would. You can't imagine Karoma doing that sort of job, can you? Is what I'm saying.
No. Yeah.
So even if Ward is fully fit, which he's obviously not because he's missed a lot, to only have two, in my opinion, main strikers is not enough. Even if you're playing one up front, because we've talked about keepers earlier on, you've got 3 keepers. So why would you not have 3 strikers? Do you know what I mean? You can't say, we need 3 keepers in case one gets injured, but then be like, not just particularly you, Jonny, I'm just talking in general.
Yeah.
People can't be, we've got 2 that can play, so if one gets injured, we'll play other. Because what if he has a bad game? What if you need to switch it up after 60 minutes? What if he takes a knock? To only have 2 real recognised strikers on your books in general is poor. And again, it goes back to the summer. And I think that's what is annoying myself and a lot of people when you look around on social media. It's not just the fact that the player X, Y, and Z didn't come. It's what is the thought, what is the plan, what's going to happen in the summer. That's what's grating a lot of people. You can buy a striker for 6 months, you can bring someone in on loan for 6 months, you can bring in Glenn Murray, you can bring in David Nugent, you can bring in whoever for 6 months. But then in summer, what do we do in summer? Do we have a list already? And obviously we don't know this, do we? So it's hard to say. So
this conversation could be totally different in the summer when Phillips is half a year older, Keane, and you've got young lads in midfield who are all bombing on and improving. Do you know what I mean? Half a year, look at Steady half a season for Steady, and it was a different kind of player. Steady bloody, when he went in youth team and we played FA Youth Cup, he struggled to bloody cross the ball into the box. Next thing you know, the season after is unbelievable. So this, looking at the staff, Scoey, Worthy, all pushing, championing these young players. Maybe that's what they're looking at. But again, where's your communication coming from club? Because the fans are, like I say, the fans are furious out there. The fans just want to know that we're going to be safe and come on, like we all say exactly the same. Don't we? Where's the strikers? We all want a good striker, don't we?
I think Jonny called it right. It's a risky strategy that massively. If we've thought we've got enough, and if it pays off and we stay up, you look back and say, do you know what? I'm glad we didn't spend 400 grand on whoever. If you go down, you look back and think, I tell you what, for another 100 grand, we'd have had him. And if he goes on and scores 10 goals for Luton between now and end of the season, you look back and think, Jesus Christ, for 100 grand, that would have kept us up. So I think I saw someone on Twitter with Stephen Chicken. He's probably a little bit more like you, Jonny, in the fact that he's probably a little bit more neutral than us, in the fact that he will probably wait before going mental on Twitter like I do. And he's quite in, because that's his job, innit? That's your job. You're a little bit more objective in your opinion.
That's the right word for it. We try and view it from both ways, totally understanding the frustrations of you lot, and totally, we're all football fans. That's why we do the jobs that we do. So we fully get it. We fully understand those frustrations, but we also try, from the base knowledge we have of the conversations that we have with people in and around the club, to go, okay, well, what about from their perspective though? It's playing that devil's advocate almost. That's kind of the role.
Yeah.
I know you don't like...
Sorry,
mate. Go on, mate.
All right. I think there's two things for me. I think, obviously it's past. If Phillips is good as they're making out, then he needs game time because Campbell's cooked. And let's see him, like you say, Phil, young lad, he'll all be experienced. And, who knows? I mean, he's only come on for the last 10 minutes for most games, so give him a bit of chance. But I also, for me, I was like you, Poz. I think, like Chicken talks about that a lot. And like you said, Jonny, you're objective. But as fans, you're passionate about it and you care about it. But for me, I think wait till the summer, because obviously we don't know how bad COVID is. Phil does mention that. Clubs have mentioned that. Also, we've got all these high wage earners. But the summer's key for me, because you can't use the excuse of, we've got all these big wage earners. They might have, COVID might be really bad. We don't know, fans are coming in. But it is a big summer. And I think that's, for me personally, is when, if we don't get the players in to help Carlos, I think that's when we can, criticise a bit more, in my opinion. But I'm just going to read out some comments, Phil, very quickly. So because obviously strikers is quite interested. So Ollie Fisher from Sempre Milan. We might not have signed anyone, but Town Twitter was on form last night. Shows people do still care. More anger than apathy, which is good. Keeps the right people being held to account.
Yeah.
Proud Terriers, club below us have games in hand and aren't safe yet. You made this point, Jonny. Hope this doesn't cost us. We concede far too easily, so scoring 2 goals this game is too much for us. Mbenza can play striker, says Terrier. Yeah, I suppose he can. Sounds generic, but we need a big man, someone with presence to establish for us in the final third. And again, that's why I saw Adebayo, because he is that kind of Mounier type of player. For me, Danny Ward was a waste of a sign. He's far too injury prone, and when he plays, he can Ryan week in, week out.
You want another Mounier back?
Mate,
I used to like
I liked Mounier.
Jesus Christ.
I liked Mounier.
I don't get this. Mounier leaves, and we're all talking about we need another player like Mounier.
No, right. No, hang on. He did score, and he had that little run last season. Right.
Song.
No. I rated Mounier. So for me, sorry, this is completely a segue, but for me, in the first season of the Premier League, Mounier was always the more skillful player than Depoitre, but Depoitre worked hard. I think if you mentioned them, you'd have the perfect striker. Mounier, we never really played to Mounier's strengths for me.
Hey,
he did that good run last season.
Question. That header that Campbell, right? Answer this honestly. The header that Campbell missed at the weekend, would Mounier have scored it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, he would have.
Mate, what? If we were playing against Crystal Palace?
No, mate, he scored headers last season. Like, I'm telling you, Mounier would have scored that header. That's my opinion, but I would have scored that. I think he would have scored it as well.
I think you're right, Brady. Just to go back to Mounier, the reason why we never played for his strengths is because we brought in Mbenza and Diakhaby to try to play to his strengths, and they were absolutely awful. And it made Mounier look worse than what he was.
And now we're whipping balls into the box. When Toffolo's putting beauty balls in, and Benza's whipping great balls in, and we've got no one in there.
No one there, yeah, exactly.
We do it every time, don't we? We say it all the time. Do you think it's just like a universal thing that fans do? Like you have to complain about everything.
Yeah.
That one we always sit back when we're winning. We always let it, every team will say that, surely. Why
you'll have 91 other podcasts going on tonight, and they all say exactly. We always concede it last minute. A team at 1 for 6, and they'll always beat us. And it's like everyone says exactly like you say. Everyone says it exactly the same. It's just football fan thing, isn't it?
I was looking at Luton's. How sad am I tonight? I was looking at Luton's Instagram, and just comparing them to us, like the way we feel today. They're buzzing with their signings. Like it's like couldn't have got a better transfer window. So how can a club like that identify what they need and bring in the right kind of players, and we're not doing? That worries me.
But you judge a transfer window a few months in, don't you? If all those players are flops and they spent a load of money on them and they're getting dragged towards a relegation battle, it won't have been a great transfer window then, will it?
Yeah, this is it.
Look at us. We talk about that summer of shitness where we bought Diakhaby and Mbenza and all that, and you see, well, yeah, we signed this bloke from France, 10 million. Oh, it's going to be awesome.
Yeah,
and now, it's worse signing clubs ever. We signed Pritchard, 10 million. Look how happy everybody with that, and now it's worse signing we've made. So,
but Luton fans,
you get caught up in the moment, don't you?
Luton fans are happy tonight.
Yeah,
that's
live for the moment.
When we beat them on Saturday, mate. Anyway, so obviously the strikers is well documented. We were linked to a load of names, but I wanted to ask. Obviously, we made 6 signings, lads. Unless anyone wants to talk about strikers anymore, I think to play devil's advocate again. If we conceded most goals in the league, if we don't make stupid mistakes, we might win a few games, and it might not always be on Campbell. Yeah. So I will just say that. But I'm going to ask you, who was your favourite signing of the window? So for me, we've not seen Danny Grant, but I think he could be interesting. But I think Dwayne Holmes. Is ready. Ready to come into this team. I think a lad. We saw him on Saturday. He put in a couple of good crosses, and I think David Hartrick made the point when he came on our preview pod, a midfield three of Holmes, O'Brien and Hogg is quite a good championship midfield, to be fair. So he's the signing for me. I think the others are good. We've talked about Keogh at length. But yeah, what about yourself? I'm going to go to you, Phil. Who was your signing in the window?
Well, like we talk about in hindsight, I think Keogh does look like a good signing. I think he looks solid, experienced, reliable. He'll do wonders for Ryan and Naby Saha. And I think Aaron's looks decent.
Yeah.
We've got to give him some game time. He looks really tidy with the ball, sharp. He uses it really well. So those two I think look good. Those two look good. I had something else on my head, and I don't want to interrupt. So who's next?
No, go for it, mate. Pozza, what about you?
I agree with Phil there. I think Aaron's. I wasn't 100% convinced for him when we went for him in summer, but I think your article, Brady, available on.
Stop it!
There, everybody. If you got any doubts about Aaron's, I think if you have a read of that totally changed my opinion on him, because as Phil mentioned earlier, you Google the player and you look at the stats and you look at goals per games, and that's basically your takeaway from it. But then actually when you speak to fans who have seen him play week in, week out, and put shift in, and as a forward player, basically you want someone who you want to open up a Wikipedia page and see that he's got 10 assists and 15 goals, don't you? And if you see 2 and 3, you think, automatically, he's not really good, but you don't know that the pass before that might have created the goal. And stuff like that. So I think Aaron's, and from the little I've seen of him, he seems to have a trick in him. I think he'll be a decent signing moving forward. So yeah, like I said, the 2 young lads, Grant and Thomas. I don't think for now. Especially Grant, I'm probably a little bit more excited about him given the hype from Ireland that came out. He seems to be championed well by them over there. So maybe next season maybe he starts and we have a look at him. But I think certainly for the here and now, Aaron's for me is probably the decent signing for this window. Sorry.
Yeah, Jonny, agree with that? Or
I agree with that, and I'm gonna clarify why we call him Aaron's as well instead of Aaron's. Right. When he arrived at the club, we spoke to our colleagues up at BBC Radio Newcastle to do a piece with him to talk about what he's like as a player, all that sort of stuff, and they said he had told them it's Aaron's. So it's come from the player's mouth, which is why we've gone with it. So until he tells us otherwise, I'm sticking with it. But I might be wrong. But that's what they told us he'd said. So technically from the horse's mouth, that's why I keep saying it. If anyone's sat there going, he keeps calling him bloody Aaron's.
Well, I said Aaron's earlier just because you said Aaron's. So.
Yeah, well, that's what they've told us he said. That's his name. So I'm going with it. But I think, I'm just going to call him Rolando now because it cuts out, doesn't it? I think Rolando is the one for me. He looks really exciting. I think the more he gets into it, the more he gets up to game time. The fact that he was so annoyed at being substituted at the weekend, I like that as well. That he really cares. He really wants to be out there. Felt he could make a difference. And he's just exciting, and he's what you want to see. Keogh's steady, and he'll do exactly what you need to do. Despite the fact he tried to give the ball away as much as possible at the weekend, he'll still do what he needs to do in and around defensively. So steady signing for me. But I think Rolando is the signing of the transfer window.
Yeah, fair enough, guys. Well, I suppose there ain't much. What I will say with Aaron's, obviously everyone forgets because Campbell missed that penalty, but Aaron's made that for O'Brien, and also he made the goal for Buchan. Oh no, ends up back healed it. So yeah, you're right. Good chat. Again, I don't think any of them are bad, to be fair. So can kind of move on. Just seeing what the comments have said. Oh, apparently Jordan Rhodes has scored in the 90th minute for a winner against Bournemouth. So there you go. So,
I mentioned him earlier. You see, mention a name and the person will go and score.
So
Fraser Campbell. So everybody together, come on with like Yuri Geller all at the same time.
Are you going to do what? Are you going to, use some magic and make the ball go in the net? So that header.
We'll all put stand on screen at the same time on Saturday.
You got a film doing it. If it goes in, mate, carry
on.
Like
when Beckham broke his metatarsal and they had it on the front of the paper, didn't they? Do you remember?
That's the one. Yeah. I will say though, Fraser, if he is listening, he won't be, but if he is, he does put a shift in, does lad? To be fair, I think fans do appreciate that. All right, that's the minimum expectation to put that shift in, but he's not there to score the goals, is he, at the moment? He's there in that role to do the donkey work, to try and get other people involved. So, when the chances present himself, he's got to be better at taking them. But I don't think his hard work goes as noticed as probably what he should do by a lot of fans.
He's a real leader, isn't he? And I think he's, like you say, I think it highlights when he does miss chances like that. The issue is that we're worried about where else it's going to come from. That's the problem. So that's the issue. You'll see strikers missing. I always go to it. It's my kind of second team. You have to have a second team, surely, if you're a Town fan. Surely. But like Firmino for Liverpool, he's not scored for ages. But like the work he puts in to create other chances, and I think the hard work that Fraser puts in and the way we're playing, it should, like you say, shouldn't go unnoticed. The only problem is that it's not coming from anywhere else. So it's highlighting on him now, and it's not. it's not fair, really. But that's football, isn't it? You know, we want goals. So the first place you're going to look is your striker. Because I tell you what, if we're conceding goals, first place you look is your keeper. So I have no sympathy in terms of that. Because goalkeepers get absolutely hammered, even if centre halves are crap.
I think is as well. I stuck up for him when we last on because I know Cozzy's not his biggest fan, but he wasn't. You know, I keep banging this. He wasn't meant to be first choice this season. It was meant to be Ward, and he's knackered. And like you say, I think he's only ever played 90 minutes 3 times before. So he's doing all right. But I think again, it's more. I think fans get annoyed with him because he's in a bit of a bad run, but also because there's no other option. So I tell you what, though,
you can tell his character. He won't give up, and he won't care one little bit about what fans are saying about him. He'll keep going on that pitch and he'll keep trying his hardest every time. So fair play to him, to be honest.
No, definitely. And something I did enjoy, because I actually watched the game on Sky. Obviously, the red card, they kept reviewing it. And just to see him falling over in slow motion about 20 times, she's bloody hilarious. It was just
tell you what, it went like a typical striker. He knew he was miles offside. He falls over and then gets up to try and get it again. Because, you know what I mean? Strikers are like a different breed. They'll do all to get a goal or get hold of the ball. Crackers.
Oh dear. So lads, Luton at the weekend. Obviously, we do a preview pod, but is there anything any of you lads want to mention before we wrap up? I think it's a game we need to get something out of because again, it's looking over our shoulders a bit at the moment. Anything?
The next couple are for you. I think Wickham as well after that. I think it's 2 really big games coming up, and big games that if you don't get points from those, if you don't get any points from it, you will absolutely then have the old bum twitching, won't you, and looking over your shoulders. And, that seeps in. Phil will know more than anybody else. And, Matty was telling us at the weekend, he's been relegated twice, I think he said. So he was saying when it seeps in, the first time he said he was relegated when they were cut adrift early on and tried to catch up and nearly got there and didn't. And then the other time they were relegated was where they thought they were all right and they weren't all right and they got dragged in and they went down very late on. I'm not saying that's going to happen to Town, but, if they lose to Luton, and I know Luton are above them in the table right now, but lose to Luton, that'll give Wickham a bit of belief then, won't it? That they might be able to get something as well. And it just becomes a little bit worrying then, I think, if it's a bad couple of weeks. I hope not. Luton are a decent side as well. They beat Bournemouth recently, didn't they? They've only lost narrowly to a couple of sides like Brentford. I think they lost narrowly to only 1-0. So, they're a good side. They're a decent side. So it's going to be a tough one. It's going to be a real tough one, I think.
You can see, can't you? You can see the way we play, and if we concede, it's very nervy, and that for me that's a sign of a team that does lack confidence in terms of the ability to defend. So it is a bit of a worrying sign, to be fair, if you're not scoring your goals. Like we all sit there now, and we'll all think that we need a 2-goal lead, whichever game we're playing in, and you shouldn't really think like that, should you? The year we went up and it was really comfortable. You get a 1-goal cushion, that's it, game over, game will finish. So it is a little bit worrying, to be honest. So a couple of wins really needed in February. Definitely.
It's like you say, Jonny, it's a massive couple of games, and I think something else that don't particularly help if you just take this season in isolation, as a fan or as a journalist or someone else looking outside, looking in on Huddersfield Town, you look at it and you think, do you know what? It's not a bad season actually. There were fans saying we're going to get relegated. We're a decent distance away from the relegation zone. We're on a little bit of a bad run at the moment, but early season form, if we can pick that back up when injuries come in, you'd think we'd pull away. I think one thing that massively hinders Town at the moment, and it was highlighted probably again by people like me in the window, that now we're looking at a 4th consecutive season where we're looking over our shoulders or we're in a relegation fight. And all you do is you cast your mind, it's another season where we could potentially go down. And I think a lot of the frustration that's coming out of it is due to that, not just this season in isolation. I think, like I said, a lot of people appreciate the job that Carlos is doing at the moment. But as soon as you start to lose 2, 3, 4 games, we haven't won in 2021 yet, and we're in February. So easy to just think, look at that season when we got relegated on last day. We went into that, we'll never get relegated. Needed like 3 results to go against us, and they all did. And your mind just goes back to all the negative, So a point at Luton and a win against Wickham, and suddenly everything looks, a lot of Fraser Campbell gets an hat-trick and, we're all laughing at it. Danny Ward gets on field for more than 10 minutes and everyone's buzzing, A week's a long time in politics, but it's also a long time in football as well. So
yeah,
we could be sat here doing a pod after Wickham and everybody's, opinion could be totally changed. So I think it's a performance, a couple of goals and 4 points, and I think, it just fans the fit, keeps the fans going a little bit longer. But a couple of losses, 0 goals, and all of a sudden, there's hell on again. So it's up to them, innit? It's up to the club, it's up to the players to get on with it. It's
just results, really, for me. The performances have been there at times, looking against all these other teams. I'm not seeing, again, it's another year again, I've not seen a quality team come to our spot or play against us at any point. There's been a few, obviously, but it's just the goals. It's just the finishing games off. That's all we're missing.
Absolutely, and we're going to finish up this pod. I mean, we'll talk in advance, but I look forward to Richard Keogh's hat-trick from 3 corners at the weekend. But gentlemen, thanks so much for coming on. Thanks to everyone who commented and tuned in, and we'll be back again next week to hopefully talk about a win.
There's a team that is dear to its followers. The colours are bright blue and white. They're a team of renown. They're the pride of the town, and the game of football is their delight. And all the while upon the field of play, thousands loudly cheer them on the way. Often you can hear them say, who can beat the town today? And then the bells will ring so merrily, and every goal shall be a memory. So town, play up and bring that cup back to Huddersfield. So town, play up and bring the cup back to Huddersfield.